Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Manachari Jamunatira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jayam Vishnupada Mahavishnu Rajakacharya Rasta Tarashara Shishimadabai Charanadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Iskangaravinda Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Sri Guru Parambara Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Sorry? Yeah, please, yeah. I can read the Bhagavatam, but this is too small. Oops.
Reading from Prabhupada, he built a house in which the whole world could live. Around 9:30, Swamiji left his Frederick Street apartment and got into the back seat of Harvey's Cadillac. He was dressed in his usual saffron robes, and around his neck he wore a garland of gardenias, whose sweet aroma filled the car. On the way to the Avalon, he talked about the need to open more centres. At 10 o'clock, Swamiji walked up the stairs of the Avalon, followed by Kirtananda and Ranachor. As he entered the ballroom, devotees blew conch shells, someone began a drum roll, and the crowd parted down the centre, all the way from the entrance to the stage, opening a path for him to walk. With his head held high, Swamiji seemed to float by as he walked through the strange milieu, making his way across the ballroom floor to the stage. Suddenly, the light show changed. Pictures of Krishna and his pastimes flashed onto the wall. Krishna and Arjuna riding together on Arjuna's chariot, Krishna eating butter, Krishna subduing the whirlwind demon, Krishna playing the flute. As Swamiji walked through the crowd, everyone stood, applauding and cheering. He climbed the stairs and seated himself softly on a waiting cushion. The crowd quieted. Looking over at Allen Ginsberg, Swamiji said, "You can speak something about the mantra." Alan began to tell of his understanding and experience with the Hare Krishna mantra. He told how Bhaktivedanta Swami had opened a storefront on 2nd Avenue and had chanted Hare Krishna in Tompkins Square Park, and he invited everyone to the Frederick Street Temple. "I especially recommend the early morning kirtans," he said, "for those who, coming down from LSD, want to stabilize their consciousness on re-entry." Swamiji spoke, giving a brief history of the mantra. Then he looked over at Alan again. "You may chant." Srila Prabhupada ki.
Okay. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 4, the Hansaguya Prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 25. Teho Asavo Aksha Manavo Puttamatram. Teho Savoksha Manavo Puttamatram. Teho Savoksha Manavo Puttamatram. Atmanam Anyang Cha Vidu Parang Yat Atmanamanyang Chavidu Param Yat Sarvang Puman Veda Punangsh Cha Tagyo Sarvam Puman Veda Gunangsh Cha Tagyo Na Veda Sarva Kyam Anantam Ide Naveda Sarvagyam Anantamide. Deho Savoksha Manavo Puttamatram. Atmanam Manyam Chavidu Param Yat Sarvam Puman Veda Gunangsh Tatagyo Naveda Sarvagyam Anantamide. Deho Savoksha Manavo Puttamatram. Atmanamanyam chavidu param yat sarvam puman veda gunangishtatachyo naveda sarvagyam anantamide. Vaishnavis, Deha, this body, Asava, life as Aksha, the different senses, Manava, the mind, understanding, intellect, and ego, Bhutamatram, the five gross material elements, and the sense objects, form, taste, sound, and so on. Atmanam, themselves, Anyam, any other, Cha, and Vidu, no, Param, beyond, Yat, that which, Sarvam, everything, Uman, the living being, Veda, knows, Gunan, the qualities of the material nature, Cha, and Tatya, knowing those things, Na, not, Veda, knows, Sarvagyam, unto the omniscient, Anantam, the unlimited, Ide, I offer my respectful obeisances. Translation. Because they are only matter, body, the life airs, the external and internal senses, the five gross elements, and the subtle sense objects, form, taste, smell, sound, and touch, cannot know their own nature, the nature of the other senses, or the nature of their controllers. But the living being, because of his spiritual nature, can know his body, the life airs, the senses, the elements, and the sense objects, and he can also know the three qualities that form their roots. Nevertheless, although the living being is completely aware of them, he is unable to see the Supreme Being, who is omniscient and unlimited. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Please repeat. Because they are only matter, body, the life airs, the external and internal senses, the five gross elements, and the subtle sense objects, form, taste, smell, sound, and touch, cannot know their own nature, the nature of the other senses, or the nature of their controllers. But the living being, because of his spiritual nature, can know his body, the life airs, the senses, the elements, and the sense objects. And he can also know the three qualities that form their roots. Nevertheless, although the living being is completely aware of them, he is unable to see the Supreme Being, who is omniscient and unlimited. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki. Material scientists can make an analytical study of the physical elements, body, the senses, the sense objects, and even the air that controls the vital force. But still they cannot understand that above all these is the real spirit soul. In other words, the living entity, because of his being a spirit soul, can understand all the material objects, or when self-realized, he can understand the Paramatma, upon whom yogis meditate. Nevertheless, the living being, even if advanced, cannot understand the Supreme Being, the personality of Godhead, for he is ananta, unlimited in all six opulences. Amigyanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance. My spiritual master has forced up my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. What's interesting here, Srila Prabhupada says, material scientists can make an analytical study of the physical elements, the body, the senses, the sense objects, and even the air that controls the vital force. And this is because, as Daksha Prajapati is stating in this verse, they're able to do so because they are spiritual by nature, and therefore they're on a platform of being, they're able to elevate themselves to a platform of panoramic vision of those elements which are beneath them. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, it's the hierarchy of sense objects and senses and intelligence and mind is given, that the senses are superior to the dull material nature, the mind is superior to the senses, the intelligence is superior to the mind, and he, the soul, is superior to all of these. So that's also the case even with the material scientists, that even though they may deny, it's quite ironic, that even though they deny the existence of the soul, still because by nature they are spiritual, then for that reason they are able to make a kind of objective analysis. And then Srila Prabhupada says that the yogis, when they're self-realized, they can understand the Paramatma. at least they can understand the situation of the Paramatma within the body. They can understand the function of the Paramatma within the material body. It doesn't mean that they can understand the Paramatma as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because here Srila Prabhupada says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is ananta, unlimited, and inconceivable. So in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verse 2, Krishna says, Name Vidu Suragana Prabhavanna Mahashaya Aham Adihi Devanam Mahashinam Chasarvasha. Neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. And Srila Prabhupada says, Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, no one is greater than him, he is the cause of all causes. Here it is also stated by the Lord personally that he is the cause of all the demigods and sages. Even the demigods and great sages cannot understand Krishna. They can understand neither his name nor his personality. So what is the position of the so-called scholars of this tiny planet? And what is the position of us, inhabitants of this tiny planet, out of billions of inhabitants? So, we've been connected to the Guru Parampara, and the Guru Parampara is the process by which Krishna has chosen to disseminate knowledge to the inhabitants of this tiny planet. Srila Prabhupada was very keen to get his followers initiated because he had complete faith in this Parampara system, both because it's given in the Vedas and stated by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita as being the system, and also through his own experience of being empowered by his spiritual master. And Srila Prabhupada saw many of his disciples, his initiated disciples, fall away from the path, but yet he didn't give up the process of giving initiation. So initiation and the process of Diksha doesn't guarantee success, but without it, there's no possibility of success. Because although scholars may be proud of their knowledge of the material elements, they've got no knowledge of the Supreme Lord. They've got no knowledge even of the Paramatma. So really all their knowledge is actually, in the end, it's actually useless. Their knowledge is really just mixing the elements around, mixing the material elements to create a slightly better temporary material situation. Just like a child who might building sandcastles on the beach, like they used to build sandcastles and all sorts of different architectural wonders, the child may be able to create some wonderful sandcastles on the beach, but the tide comes in and washes them away. So similarly, all of the so-called advancement of civilization and all of the attempts to increase the security of living beings in the material world are all actually futile, because they're just being conducted within the realm of the gross senses, and sometimes even the subtle senses, but they're completely devoid of any knowledge of the super soul or of the Supreme Lord. Here Krishna says, neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. So the demigod, therefore the demigods actually, and even those devotees mixed devotees, the demigods are mixed devotees. They're like Kama Mishra Bhaktis, and the sages are Jnana Mishra Bhaktis. So they're Bhaktas. So they're still putting some faith in their material estimation of things, and they're still putting some faith in their ability in their material estimation. They're still putting some faith in their skill in performing activities in such a way that it appears to them that they're getting the results because of their endeavors, or because of their knowledge, or because of their working out what the system is. But Krishna says, no, in every respect, I am the source of the demigods and sages. That Krishna may allow these personalities who are not pure devotees to manipulate the material energy in such a way as to satisfy their material desires. But actually Krishna is actually awarding it to them. But we understand from Srila Prabhupada's purports that Krishna chooses to allow us to believe that to some degree we're in control of our activity, the results of our activities. He allows the kings and the demigods to believe that it's them who are actually controlling things, because we're not quite ready to surrender completely, and therefore because there needs to be a certain amount of stability in the universal order, then Krishna allows us to continue in our activities with a certain belief that we are controlling things. Because only pure devotees are able to act with the complete conviction that Krishna is in control of everything, and therefore are able to act with enthusiasm and compassion, even when things appear to be in chaos around them, because they understand that this apparent chaos is just looking through the microscope at some tiny little detail of Krishna's plan. Just like when the waves come and knock all the sandcastles down. So similarly, in the material world, when the waves come down and destroy whole civilizations, only the pure devotees can actually see this as Krishna's mercy, and actually continue to act with complete devotion to their spiritual master and to the Guru Parampara. the rest of us kind of still hang on to our material estimation of things. And Krishna allows that to some degree, and he allows the demigods to think that they're in control. Because people who are not on that level of complete surrender need to gradually be able to attain that faith. Krishna says to Arjuna, because you are my devotee and my friend, I shall now explain to you the secret. You can understand this secret. So it's very. And Srila Prabhupada says here that, that the yogis can understand the Paramatma, or at least they can understand the function of the Paramatma in terms of how the Paramatma is witnessing their activities and rewarding them for their endeavors. But only the devotees can understand the personal nature of Krishna. And the devotees can also perceive Krishna within their hearts. And that perception actually is more powerful even than all of the penances and tapasya of the ascetics and of the yogis and of the intense mental gymnastics of the jnanis. That gift of the awareness of Krishna within the heart, that is the most powerful gift. And we can see that in how Srila Prabhupada's disciples, who had no experience in jnana or in jnana yoga, were able to become very, very much empowered disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and now have taken on great responsibility within ISKCON. So we don't know. Srila Prabhupada said some of these personalities were demigods in previous lives, but being demigods was not sufficient for them to take on the responsibility they've now been given, because the responsibility they now have is to carry on the Guru Parampara, which is transmitting this very confidential knowledge of Krishna to the next generation. So that is the main qualification of the spiritual master, is to be the means by which this confidential knowledge of Krishna is passed on in an unpolluted way. His Holiness Keshava Bhagavan Swayam Bhagavan Maharaj gave a nice point in answer to Ramananda Prabhu's question. That practicing bhakti yoga according to the ways and means given by our spiritual masters enables us to become the best version of ourselves. It's not necessarily that we can transcend our nature. Of course, Krishna can facilitate for us to transcend our nature, but because he's teaching Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita that he has a particular nature and that he should engage that nature in Krishna's service, and we can understand that this is the kind of the system that Krishna is teaching. So there may be occasions in which Krishna does enable his devotees to transcend their nature. But it's not that we should consider that that is the goal for us, which means that we may be always struggling with certain aspects of our nature, and therefore it's not. We shouldn't use those. We shouldn't use those aspects as a litmus test of our advancement in devotion. Like the test of our advancement in devotion is how much are we remembering Krishna? How much are we eager to serve the devotees? How much are we eager to chant in a nice mood? So it's more like the litmus test is our eagerness, our enthusiasm. The litmus test is not how much have we changed externally. It's not how healthy we are physically, or even how healthy we are like intellectually or emotionally. Because as it's described in this verse, all of those items are material, and they're not capable of self-awareness. So only the spirit soul is capable of self-awareness, and in our tradition, in our disciplic succession, the purpose of that self-awareness is to offer gifts of love to Krishna and to offer gifts of love to Krishna's devotees. So according to our nature, those gifts will be in different forms. For some people, the gifts will be in physical labor. For others, they'll be in arts and music. For others, they'll be in teaching, teaching others. And perhaps there will be even some who never manage to get anything together, but their offering can be in like sincere prayer. And really that's the essence of it all, is like that sincere prayer. Even the Goswamis, even the most elevated of our acharyas, the 6 Goswamis, Srila Prabhupada glorifies them above all of their other achievements and all of their other amazing acts of reconstructing Vrindavan for the pleasure of Krishna. But Srila Prabhupada glorifies them for their prayers of like longing for Krishna. Hey Radhe, Vrajadevik Hey. So Srila Prabhupada is giving us that opportunity, irrespective of what our material abilities or disabilities may be, then we can still, that can be our goal. Our goal can be attaining that mood of like constant eagerness and feeling of being completely dependent on Krishna and completely dependent on our spiritual master. It's interesting, Daksha actually plays an unusual role in the Srimad. Obviously Daksha's one personality who has a major role to play on this planet, and yet his character is quite unusual, and he's like in one sense like an anti-hero almost. But nevertheless, here in this chapter, he's expressing his heartfelt prayers to Krishna. So, and Shukadev Goswami, pure devotee of Krishna, has chosen Daksha to he's repeating these prayers to Maharaj Parikshit, and Sutta Goswami is repeating these prayers to the sages of Naimisharanya. And so, so we shouldn't judge. We shouldn't judge anyone by their activities unless we really get to know someone closely. Then we can't really judge them, and even then we can't judge them. But we should see through the eyes of the pure devotees. So I'll stop there. Are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. This prayer that Daksha is offering, the Hamsaguya prayer, I think previously we heard in a purport that this prayer was already pre-existing, but he's going to perform austerities and sort of recite this prayer in order to get empowered to produce progeny. So is there any significance in we see with the character of Daksha and how he's in some sense relatable, but he's not particularly admirable in some other ways, very angry and spiteful. And so his prayers, he's sort of, you could say he's using there's already a pre-existing prayer and he's performing austerities for materialistic, you could say a somewhat materialistic purpose. It's not unallowed bhakti, it's trying to, I guess he's executing his duty, but is there any significance in the fact that he's then reciting an already pre-existing prayer?
Yeah, well, in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami, in the different items of devotional service, he mentions that we should recite prayers and notable prayers. These are some of the different items of devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada comments that there are many prayers of our acharyas which we can learn and recite when we come before the deities. But we should also recite heartfelt prayers, because the prayers of the acharyas, the sentiments expressed by our acharyas, are on the level of coming from pure devotees. So those prayers of the acharyas are pleasing for Krishna to hear, and sometimes and it may also evoke genuine sentiments in ourselves, because especially in the case of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's writing those prayers, not all of them, but he's writing some of them for the purpose of neophyte devotees like ourselves to recite. But also we should open our hearts to Krishna daily, and with the knowledge that Krishna is the best person to understand our hearts. Perhaps sometimes we can't open our hearts even to our best friends in devotional service. Perhaps we're feeling too unqualified or too insincere to reveal our minds to the devotees, but we can definitely do that with Krishna, because we understand that Krishna knows us knows everything anyway. But Lord Chaitanya, actually, it was Lord Chaitanya who gave this instruction to Rupa Goswami, and then Rupa Goswami has written it down in the Nectar of Devotion. So we can understand that Lord Chaitanya wants us to recite prayers from the Bhagavatam, and also to open our hearts, which is the real Well, actually, there are different kinds of prayers, but that is one of them that's very important, to open our heart to Krishna. And it may not come out in the form of a prayer in the sense, it may not be like a verse, or even, it may not even be something that we would be able to write down. So it's like, maybe even something that we can't even express in language. So anyway, we don't know whether Daksha did such a thing. We don't know whether Daksha said any heartfelt prayers to Krishna. But he was, it's interesting that even though his goal was to increase his family and to increase his power materially, but still in all of those yagyas, there would have been glorification of Krishna. And so even if he wasn't being purified significantly by those prayers, but all those who heard them were purified. So this is the system that this is Krishna's amazing Achinta Shakti, that he can simultaneously fulfill somebody's material desire by giving them some prayers which will empower them to have a function of creation in the material world. But because those prayers are being recited in the assembly of thousands of people, then others who hear them will be inspired to take up devotional service, will be inspired by hearing about Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. On one of the last points you were saying, how sometimes we can't manage to sincerely open up to devotees, but we can always open up to Krishna. And my question, is it always recommended to open up to a devotee as well as opening up to Krishna? Or are there times where maybe it's best to just open up to Krishna and not open up to another devotee?
Well, it is one of the, again, Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Instruction is Guyam Akyati Prichati. We should inquire confidentially and also reveal our minds to others. But it says confidentially. So confidential literally means confide. Confide means with faith, with real faith in someone. So we shouldn't open our heart to someone who we don't have I mean, it may be that we have more faith in a devotee than we have in Krishna at some stage in our life. That may be we've done something upset so much that we can't open our heart to Krishna, but perhaps a devotee who is very caring and very compassionate towards us will give us the opportunity for us to reveal our heart to them, even though, as I say, we may feel that we're too fallen to reveal our heart to. And it's good that we think like that also. So that's why the spiritual master is sometimes said to be more compassionate than Krishna. Takshipa, would you like to say something about this?
whether it's always advised to open up to a devotee as well as, or instead of opening up to Krishna. Because sometimes you can't always open up to a devotee, but is it still recommended to do it even though it's more difficult?
Well, one of the processes is Rupa Goswami is explaining is to Guya Makati Prichati, isn't he? To inquire confidentially. But then he also says that you have to discriminate. Krishnati Ajagrita Manasadreta. So some devotees you can respect them in your mind, but you keep a distance. Some devotees you offer formal dandavats because they're fully initiated and engaged in worshipping the devotee, but you're discerningly looking for the devotee whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. In other words, someone that can non-violently communicate to you in such a way that you don't become discouraged or feel insulted or criticized, but that the person is your ever well-wisher, whatever he's telling you is for you. So the onus is on you to discriminate. This one I'm just going to respect from a distance, this one I'm going to offer formal respect, and this one I'm going to open my heart and mind to. And Rupa Goswami is advising that you have to learn that art of, when you're in this society of devotees, there's a whole spectrum of devotees of all different levels, you see. And it's not offensive for you to discriminate. It's actually required that you do that. And then you're looking for either a Diksha Guru or a Shiksha Guru, someone that you can go to, you can open up to, and you can go away and you can be empowered to practice your Krishna consciousness with more enthusiasm.
Is this discrimination a matter of sentiment, or is it something that we can understand more objectively?
Well, if you want to discriminate, one of the best dimensions to measure somebody with is time. So therefore you have to be a little bit patient. If you're wanting to check somebody out as to whether you can reveal your mind to them, you have to see is the devotee steady in his practice of Krishna consciousness. And sometimes the devotee can seem really enthusiastic and really fired up at the time, but can he sustain it over a long period of time? And then if he's able to, so that means you'll have to wait around for a little while, measuring him with time, And then also, is he steady in his practice of Krishna consciousness? Physically steady, then verbally steady, and then mentally steady. And then if he starts to tick all the boxes, then okay, so it looks like this person I can take shelter of, So it takes patience and time,
I was thinking of Taylor come Shushamikshana, how one should be praying from the core of one's heart. One experiences the one's karma and the reactions of one's good and bad past activities, but still, because he's praying from the core of his heart, the devotee has liberations as his rightful claim, or going back to Godhead as his rightful claim. Could you maybe say something how that relates?
Just in relation to this verse, neither the host of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences. For in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. So one symptom of a pure devotee is that they're not thinking themselves a pure devotee, and therefore they are considering that anything unpleasant or inauspicious that happens in their life is a result of their karma or a result of their inappropriate actions. And even though Srila Prabhupada says a pure devotee is not receiving karma, but still a pure devotee never thinks that he understands everything perfectly. He never thinks that he always knows that Krishna is unlimited and inconceivable. And therefore it's always a safe position to that's a safe position to take. It's just to be the humble servant and consider that whatever difficulties one is experiencing is a result of his own karma. Mantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Gaura Premanandi.
Javat Vasi Prabhu ki jai.
Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Jai.